Hey guys, today we're working on the speaker panel, and what we're going to do is drill some holes before we put the black laminate on the finished side, and we want holes all the way through here for the speakers that we're going to mount. Now this is a small speaker that come out of those little desktop speaker set that I tore apart, and like I said, they do look kind of small, but they really pack quite a punch for their size. I'm just hoping that it will, reverberate and sound full through the cabinet. If not, I may build a small enclosure on the back of these to make them sound better once it's done. But I think it's going to be okay. What we want to do today is get those holes drilled, and we need one for the left speaker and one for the right. I've got my hole saw kit out here, and it's got hole saws that go all the way up to 2.5 inches. I only want to drill a hole that's big enough for just the main part of the speaker cone, and there is kind of a solid edge around where the edge of the speaker cone is. It's made when you put the screws in to kind of seal this up against the edge of whatever panel it's against. It almost feels a little bit like a kind of a rubber gasket almost at the edge of it, and that part right there can be flush up against the speaker panel. And we want to drill the hole so it's just large enough for the cone of the speaker to have room to move there, and the edge of this right here should basically fall right on the edge of the circle that we cut with the hole saw. And we'll put 2 screws in there to mount it good and tight up against there. And we got to have one on the left and the right, and I've done a little bit of pre-measuring. I know that I kind of want to center it in the panel across through here, but this panel, when it's installed, this is the edge here on the front that has the 45-degree bevel, and that's where the little bracket for the marquee will be on the lower front edge of the marquee. And so we want to measure from this part back about half the distance between the front edge of this and where the monitor or the shroud or bezel for the monitor is going to be. And at the moment I don't have the bezel, but I've got a good idea of whereabouts it'll be. It's going to be up 1 inch or 2 from the back edge of the panel. So this is going to extend back to where part of this wood is actually going to be hidden by the bezel, and is going to just barely come in contact with the edge of the monitor probably. So we don't want to measure exactly halfway between the front and back of this panel. We want to measure to where this part is going to disappear at the bezel. And I've got an idea of about where that is, and I've pre-measured on the cabinet and on this panel. And I know pretty much what we need to do is go up under the finished edge and measure back about 7 inches and then kind of cut that in half. So 7 inches is about how much of this is going to be visible at the front of the cabinet when the finished black laminate's on it. And we'll come down half of that. We'll come back probably about 3.5 inches. The center of the hole that we drill will probably fall right along here. I think I'm off the camera a little bit. Probably right around this area. We do want to come in a few inches from the side too, because we don't want it too close to the sides. Probably end up being somewhere, the center of it probably falls somewhere around right here. You got, this is coming back about 4 inches, and that's, see, right there is about 4 inches, so we'll probably put it right about there because we want to come back 3.5 inches from the finished side. There's a 45-degree bevel on this front edge, so on that other side, which is the finished side, 3.5 inch mark will probably be about 4 inches back if you're measuring on this side. But we'll take measurements on the other side, flip it around, and start the hole from there, and probably finish it from the back edge so we don't have a lot of splintering out. And we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. And after we cut those out and everything, we'll probably go ahead and just make sure it looks like a decent fit, and put the black laminate on the other side. And once the black laminate's on the other side and the glue is set up, we'll have to come back with the trim router and route around that to make it look pretty. And then we can be just about ready to install the speakers. We'll be real close to ready to install the speakers, but after the black laminate has cured sufficiently, we'll actually put this face down again on some scrap wood and drill some very small holes into it. I think, like I said in a previous clip, to make it look kind of like there's a salt shaker or pepper shaker look to the other side. There'll be like one little place where this speaker is mounted behind that will have some small perforations, some small clean holes. Might be 8 to 10 of them or so, just so the sound can come out, but we're not going to put a grill across it. To me, I don't like that look of the grill. I think it would look cleaner if there's just some very small holes. So we'll probably take something like an 1/8 inch bit or something like that, maybe slightly larger, probably around 1/8 inch, and just make several perforated holes within the circular area that the laminate is at that goes over the hole we drill for the speaker itself. But we're going to go ahead and mark these off, find the right hole saw. It'll probably be the third from the largest size, because I think there's a 2.5, a 2, and a 1 3/4. I got a feeling, let's see. Yeah, 1 3/4 is going to be real close to what we need. That looks like that's going to be it, 1 3/4. If we go any larger, we can't go any larger because 2 inches is the next largest size, and that's going to be too large. That's going to fall over our gasket, and we want the gasket to rest good and tight against the solid wood. So we'll go ahead and do a 1 3/4 inch hole with the hole saw, and we'll come back and show you some of those results in a few minutes. Okay guys, we've measured out for our holes. We came in 4 inches from each side, here on the left and the right. I know you can't see this too well over here, but I could slide it over, but just trust me, on the right we're over 4 inches just like we are here. And we come in 3.5 from the front leading edge. This will be the finished side when the black laminate is on it. We're going to start drilling from the finished side, and we'll finish from the opposite side that has the paint on it. But we measured over 4.5 inches, and mainly that was just to keep it as separated as possible. So for things that have stereo soundtracks, I mean, we could be playing video files or MP3 files on this unit. Once it's done, I probably will have something like a jukebox function and some type of program to run that can play music and MP3 files in the background if I want it to. And you might want a little separation for stereo in case you're standing in front of it and listening to music or something. And stereo soundtracks, certain games might have some reason for separation of left and right channel, and so you want a little space in between there. You don't want them real close together. So we've separated as far as we can and centered it on there without getting too close to the edges, because on the edges we still need to clear the cleats that are on the other side. So I gave it an extra inch to each side. After, like, here's the center of the speaker. Well, let me show you on this speaker over here. Here's the center of the speaker, and so we gave it an extra inch this way because these are 2-inch speakers. So we got an inch that way to clear the speakers on the left and right side. And you could go anywhere you want this way because there's nothing on the other side, but if you come over here, there's a cleat right here on the other side, and we don't want to get too close to that. So we left an inch of space between the edge of the cleat and the edge of the speaker. So we're over 4.5, up 3.5. That's where we're going to drill on each side. So we'll do that, and we'll come back and show you the holes in a minute. Okay, we're going to start drilling our first hole here, and we're going to make a little divot right there on the cross so that when the little pilot bit in the center of the hole saw starts, it won't be moving around. We want to make sure that it falls right on that location. So I'm just going to use Phillips head screwdriver and just make a little divot right dead center. That'll just give a starting point for the bit so it doesn't wallow around when it first starts. There we go. Just make sure it feels like it's in that spot. And we'll start drilling. And we do have a backer board underneath this 3/4 inch, and we're not going all the way through, so the pilot bit shouldn't go all the way through to the carpet. If it does, I'll make a little place in my carpet, I guess. So here we go. Okay, just notice I'm on my torque setting. I need to move it to drill setting. That way it doesn't start clicking when it gets so much torque on it. Okay, we're going to come up out of it and we're going to finish the hole from the other side. We're almost halfway through, probably just a little less than halfway through. So it's pretty clean there. And what we may do is just go ahead and do the other side too. We're going to get the vacuum and clean a little bit of this dust up. And we'll go ahead and do the other side while we're on this side. Then we'll flip it over. Okay, here's the other side, guys. We're going to do it. Start it the same way. Oh, we need to make our little divot here with a screwdriver. Some of these pilot bits don't have a very sharp tip on them, and they'll wander around on you when you start. This one just has a very, very small point to it, so we just want to give it a good place to seat down into. That way it doesn't move about and get us off our mark. There we go. Okay, we got a good start on that one. And these hole saws, they really put a beating on a cordless drill. So there is a possibility I may have to get out my big 1/2 inch high output drill and finish these. But I think I can do it. If it's a larger hole saw, you know, this is 1 3/4 inches. If you're going up 2, 3, 4 inch trying to make a hole with a rechargeable drill, depending on, you know, how old it is, this is a very old drill, and how powerful the battery and the motor is, you may have to do it with a corded drill, much more powerful, because there's so much friction with the cup of these bits against the wood, and depending on what type of wood you're going through, it just really works the motor pretty hard. So the best thing to do is to let the drill bit or the hole saw do the cutting. Don't put much force on it. Let it take its time and cut the wood. There's just a lot of friction, a lot of surface area that's going through there. So we're going to clean this mess up and flip the board around. We'll be back in a second. Okay, we're going to finish the first hole here on the back side. You see what I was talking about with the cleats. You have to stay far enough away from the cleats so that making this circle for the speakers and all isn't getting too close, because you do have to run some screws in here. And what is a possibility too is that I may have to install the speaker and then come back and remove the speaker before I install this in the cabinet, because screws have to go in here, and you have to leave room here to run that screw in. And it looks like this speaker and the magnet's going to fall in the way of that, depending on if my long driving bit will clear it. If it doesn't clear it, the speaker will have to be removed. You have to install the panel and then come back and put the speakers in, but it's no trouble because it's just 2 screw holes. Good thing is you don't have to make a divot on this side because we already have a hole all the way through it. We'll give the drill a break for just a second because it is a lot of torque on it. Just gonna let it cool off for a second. Let it cool off again for a second. You should feel it when it pops through the other side, because the friction will go down a lot and it'll be a lot easier, and you may actually feel that little piece of wood that you've just drilled out the circle, you may feel it break loose, but that's why it's good to drill from the other side, because otherwise if you went all the way through in one pass, when it breaks that circle of wood loose, especially with plywood, it's going to crack and splinter the other side, the face of the other side of the wood pretty bad. And it doesn't really matter on this one because we're going to put black laminate over it, but that's just a good practice to get into. There it goes. You see it, you heard the motor speed up a little. and I was just pushing on it, that's because it just broke through the other side. And this will probably pull that round piece of wood out right now. And if you look in the bottom of the drill, that's a piece of wood right there. It's in the drill bit, and that's what we just drilled out. And we're all the way through to our piece of padded wood behind. So we pull that out, and hopefully we got a good clean cut. We're going to use a vacuum. I'll do this on camera just so you can see it. As you can see, we got, looks like a really clean hole. Let's pick it up off of the piece of wood behind it. There it is. Very nice, very clean. We didn't hurt our painted surface, so went just fast enough. Didn't mess everything up, and you can see the other side. Nice and clean, so it came out great. I only hope the other side does that well. It's putting a little pressure on this drill. I probably need to buy me a new Makita or DeWalt or something. A little higher output, maybe an 18 volt, but this drill's been great for over 15 years. And you can see we popped through on our piece of padded wood underneath, and that protected our carpet. The drill bit that goes down through the center, let's see if it passed all the way through. Ooh, it just about did. If you can see, this is where it almost punched through. Now this was just where we started our first two holes, and it only went down about 1/4 of an inch. This is where the drill bit just now almost passed all the way through because I pushed on it. But it hit the carpet and didn't hurt anything. So it's good to have a piece of padding on there. Got the first hole done. Now let's do the other hole. And I want to do it off camera since you've already seen the results of this. And I'll come back and show you everything once it's done. Okay guys, got our holes all drilled and cleaned up. Worked out fantastic, no problems. As you can see, we come in about where we wanted to. We left us about an inch of clearance here on each side before these cleats. And like I say, once the speakers are installed, where that screw goes in to mount this panel, it may cause a little bit of problems, but that just means that when we go to put this panel in, it probably won't be removed in the future at any time that I can think of. We may have to put the panel in and then attach the speakers, but what we'll do is attach the speaker temporarily just to get the holes for the mounting of the frame of the speaker already pre-drilled and set up. And then we'll take the speakers loose and put it back in, because when we run this screw in perpendicularly to this cleat, we're going to need some clearance there for the bit and the chuck of the drill. And I may have a bit that's long enough to do it, and it may not bump the speaker. If so, we'll try it. But I have a feeling we'll have to take the speaker loose temporarily, but that's no big problem. But we kept it an inch away from the cleat there. We come in, this is the finish edge. Now, if you include the 45-degree angle, in other words, take off almost ½ an inch, you can see the center of this is almost right on 3.5 inches, and the same thing on this other one here. You got, like you say, you know, like I say, you got to take off about ½ an inch because there's a taper to this side over here. It's a 45-degree angle, so we really want to be 3.5 inches from this side that the laminate's going on. So you can see from this point there, we need to be about 3.5 inches. So if you set it at 3.5 inches, you can see we're falling dead center on the hole. And that's exactly where we need to be. And I believe that will line it up so that these speakers will be located on the finish side in front of the monitor bezel about midway. So you're going to have an equal about 3 or 2.5 inches in front of the speaker and about the same amount back here before you hit where that bezel is going to end up being for the monitor. So I may not be on camera with that. I think I am though. But you see our holes ended up really great. This side it would have been okay had it chipped out some because it would be covered with the black laminate. But it's nice and clean on this side as well as the painted side. And none of this will be seen unless you get up in the back of the cabinet. But it's nice to keep it neat and not splinter the wood up if you can help it. But we're done with that at the moment. We'll probably go ahead and just do a temporary installation of the speakers. And I'll grab one of them right here just to show you. But the speakers are going to be mounted from this painted side here. So they'll go, if you can tell, they'll go right over that hole there and cover that up. And on the opposite side, see if I can get it to where you can see it through the camera. I laid it on there perfect first try, that's good. If you can see down in there, see if I can get it up where there's some light. Not sure if it's focusing on that. It's so black in there, the speaker's so dark. But you can see down in there, the speaker in there, it fits perfect, and it gives the cone of the speaker a little room for movement, and the gasket is going to center perfectly around the outside of that hole. So that 1 3/4 inch bit or hole saw ended up absolutely fantastic, perfect, exactly what I needed. I thought it might be a little small and might impede the movement of this cone, but what happens is those hole saws, let's say you measure the diameter and it is 1 3/4 inch or maybe just a little under, it's going to wallow slightly and the hole will end up being, you know, 1/8 of an inch bigger or so, because they just don't move perfect. I mean, maybe if I would have spent a fortune on my hole saw kit, it might have been much better, but those little mandrels or starter bits or whatever that you mount through there, sometimes they have a little wiggle room, and when the hole saw starts turning, you'll see it looks like it's wobbling slightly. Well, as it cuts through, it'll make a hole that's just slightly bigger than that cup of the hole saw, just slightly bigger. So if you measure 1 3/4 inch, it'll probably end up being, you know, a little bit closer to 1 7/8 inch or something like that. It'll be just slightly bigger. So ended up, it falls dead where the meat of the wood is still going to be in contact with the gasket, but it's not going to impede the movement of the cone of this speaker, so it can move in and out a little bit for mid ranges and stuff like that. You're not going to get much bass out of any kind of speaker like this. That's all going to be coming out of the subwoofer, but we just don't want it to impede the movement of that cone and kill any of the sound that this speaker can reproduce. But I'll come back in a few minutes and I'll make some preliminary kind of a mock-up of the installation of this and just see what it looks like, and then we're going to have to put the black laminate on the other side of this. So we'll see if we get to that today. Okay guys, we've got our holes pre-drilled for the screws that are going to mount the speakers. We used a 1/16 inch bit and drilled the upper and lower holes for these. You could have installed them like that way, where the holes are kind of horizontal to the panel. I like up and down myself, and you just want to make sure your wiring's got room to move around. So I'll probably mount them like that so that you can get access to the terminals of the speaker over here, just like we've got on this one that's already mounted. I've already put the screws in on this one, and what I did is just centered the speaker over the hole, and I flipped it over and looked to make sure that the cone looked like it was centered, and then carefully turned it back over, marked my holes with a pencil, removed the speaker, and just kept the bit right on the markings and just pre-drilled 2 holes. Used a 1/16 inch bit, which was a little smaller than the screws, and I used some wood screws here. Now it may have looked better had I used pan head screws, and you could buy those, but I have lots of screws that I save in a little container over there, and these were, you know, pretty much the perfect size. They just weren't pan head, and I had some pan heads, but they were a little skinny, and some of them looked like I might have taken them out of a project where it come out of something made out of plastic. And the plastic threads, even though they're coarse enough they'd probably, you know, stay on this wood good, the wood screws have a little coarser thread, and I like that. It gives it more holding power, so you don't have to worry about this ever coming loose from the plywood. But if you can get some pan head screws, you might like those better. These have kind of a conical shape to the head there, and they go up into the holes on the sides of the speaker tabs there enough to where really it kind of hides everything except just the tip of the head. So pan head screws, even though might have looked a little better, these work just fine, and as you can tell by this one over here, it doesn't take away from it at all. I'm going to mount this one right quick, and let me just go ahead and I'll just do that on camera right quick. It doesn't take but a second. I've already got the holes pre-drilled. I'm just doing it with a hand screwdriver because I don't want to strip it out, and the tip just falls right back into where my pre-drilled holes are. And I'll leave it a little loose until I get the other one in, and then I'll flip it out and back and make sure the cone is as centered as possible. And these are going to have to be taken out anyway, but I'm just showing you the process. I have to take them out to do the black laminate, which I hope I'll get to today. But you don't, once you pre-drill these, you don't have a whole lot of movement left. So if you're really off bad, and it's not centering the cone, then you could just take the speaker out, twist it slightly, maybe even go diagonal or horizontal with those tabs, and try it again. And if those little screw holes that you made aren't hidden, then you can come back later and put a little dab of paint on them or something if you don't like seeing those screw holes. But usually you're not off too bad, and you will have just a little movement unless the shaft of the screw is the exact diameter as the diameter of the holes in the speaker tabs. But see, like right now it's just a little bit loose. I want to tighten it just a little more. You want just a little, okay, it's got just a little movement. Now I want to flip it over and look and see how well centered it looks. I'll flip it over, and wow, that one looks dead center. I don't know if you can see. There's not a lot of light down in there, but the cone of that speaker looks dead center. Now my other one I put in, I had to flex it slightly one way and tighten the screws because it looked like the cone was maybe off by a 32nd of an inch. It was just, you know, it's just something that I wanted to get as close as possible. And as long as that gasket is not, like, you don't run the screws down so tight that you just really compress that gasket on the other side, even though you can't see it from this side, there'll be just a very slight bit of clearance, maybe a 32nd of an inch from that cone and the hole that you drilled on your wood, because that gasket has got a little thickness to it to give this a little room when you seat it down. So we're going to go ahead and seat it all the way flush. We're just tightening it enough where the speaker doesn't move. And if you take a look, I don't know if I can get this on camera. Let's see if the camera will pick it up. It's kind of hard to do. Move my stool out of the way. But yeah, you're probably not going to be able to see it. If you could see it, let me see if I turn it on an angle there. Oh, very hard to see from the camera angle. Everything's kind of in the way. But anyway, there is a slight bit between the tabs and the gasket. There's a slight bit of like light you can see in between there. So the gasket is making contact, but these tabs aren't actually making contact with the wood. They're just tightening it down enough to where that gasket is sealing against the wood and almost making it, you know, kind of an airtight fit between that gasket and the cone of the speaker. And if you had a box built behind here, I'd allow it to kind of push air, you know, to help the mid ranges and stuff like that, the sounds come out. But got them both mounted on there. Looks pretty good. And like I say, we will have to take this off because we're going to have to put black laminate on the other side, and we can't be doing that while these electronics are hooked to it, while the speakers are hooked to it. Wish there was a little more light. Let me get my flashlight here and just shine down in there and show you. There you go. You can kind of see the cone of our speaker all centered up in there, and there's enough room for that cone to move freely. And then the other one here, but it turned out real well. And we'll take these out, put a piece of black laminate over this, trim it with our trim router, and we'll come back where the holes are, and we'll drill through and make some perforations so the sound can come out, and it'll be kind of like a custom look instead of having grills over it. I think it'll be neat. So we'll do that, and hopefully that's not the end of this video. Hopefully we'll come back and show you the black laminate.